Stephen,
Hello. Andrew.
do you
Do that
fancy?
again.
Stephen,
Andrew.
do you fancy spending a quiet night inside number 9?
I guess I probably do.
One last night of the Series 6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Um. Hello, everybody joining us on the YouTube feed. Thank you so much for being here. We were just having a chat after watching this 6th episode of Series 6. And I think both of us had the same first thought, which was, how the hell do we talk about that? I'm feeling quite sort of, I don't know, blown away and overwhelmed by that episode.
Yeah. If I just figured out the last time I felt like this after watching something, and it's weird because there was some similar things. It was when the film Mother finished at the cinema. Have you seen that?
No.
It's Darren Aronofsky film, which is one big biblical allegory for Genesis up to basically the entire Old Testament, and it all goes to hell in a handcart in that. And at the end of that, I just found myself like, don't know what I just saw at all.
And then our friend Dan was sat next to you and he said, "Tell you what would be inappropriate now, bloopers," which happened after The Lives of Others when I was in a silent cinema, a full silent cinema with our Welsh friend Dan. And everybody was just paused at the end of the film. Dan is quite loud and uppy piped. "I tell you what would be inappropriate now, bloopers." And it would have been. But what was more inappropriate was saying that. Anyway, so episode 6 of Series 6. I've got that the wrong way around. Series 6, episode 6. Last Night at the Proms. Directed by Matt Lipsey, produced by Adam Tandy, written by Rhys Shearsmith and Steve Pemberton. First aired on Monday the 14th of June 2021, 40 minutes ago. Yeah. So, I don't know how we're going to sort of tackle this one. Any thoughts?
Not really. Because, yeah, I'm struggling with like a narrative. It was yeah, so I guess let's kind of just sort of head through and kind of deviate off as we come across stuff. I guess is probably our best bet.
I think that's
And
probably right.
I think that I'm really glad that I know the last couple of weeks we've decided to try and do a prediction as to what we thought was coming. And from what I'd seen,
Just have a look
all
at
I really had was that I thought this was going to be the Middle England suburban household episode, like our Last Gasp and I guess Love's
Nana's
Great
Party.
Adventure to some extent,
Yeah.
Nana's Party, all those ones. And then it started off with the guy in the front, outside the front of the house, and thought, okay, I don't know what this is going to be, if we are going to have like a horror bent to things. And yeah, so we started off with that initial shot, and then that was kind of just sort of pushed to one side, and we headed into a Last Night at the Proms party with Steve's character throwing himself all in on Last Night at the Proms. Incredibly so.
Yeah. And Penny was the only one that witnessed this mysterious figure who, and the first time she saw him, it looked like she knew him.
Yeah.
Which I think is interesting given the shape of how things go later on. I don't know, there's something in that.
I did wonder if she had actually seen him, or whether he was a figment of her imagination.
Mm-hmm.
Because she didn't want to say anything, and she didn't say anything, which would be weird if you saw someone unfamiliar skulking around outside someone else's house that you're just visiting in and saying, nothing, it's fine.
Yeah.
Nothing to see.
But that's what she almost had that sort of attitude of like, oh, there's a bloke at it. It wasn't like a, huh? It was there's just a bloke skulking around outside.
Yet she then said later that she'd seen him a few times over the course of the day.
Mm.
And it wasn't there's that guy I keep seeing.
Oh yeah, she denied him 3 times.
It was, guy outside.
Yeah. Did you write down a prediction?
No. I think mainly because I didn't think I even needed to go there.
Well,
What was yours?
I was just revisiting mine. So, it's obviously not right, but so last night at the Proms has always been the best night of the year for Dawn and Mick. Brian has lost his patriotic fervour, and they're about to get visited by a mysterious ghost, someone who Mick hasn't seen for years. He gets killed by his own Union flag whilst Land of Hope and Glory is sung for the second time. So, there's, there
was some death. There was Union flags involved in deaths. There were
potential ghost-like, second comings and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. Let's go through.
Okay.
So we meet Ollie.
Yep. Who's doing a degree in music tech.
Yeah. Not music. All the machines.
He's putting all the music in those little boxes.
He's putting them in putting it in the boxes. What a loser!
Out.
Yeah, according to his dad, who's a bit harsh, but and Brian is an interesting kind of character. He's like Father. What's his name in Father Ted? Isn't he, with his sort of
Father Jack.
Father Jack, with his occasional sort of hilarious, but also tragic interjection. Yeah. So wanker to his own grandson or his own son-in-law, maybe.
Yes.
Is the first one. Yeah, and you've got a few different threads going on as well, haven't you? You've kind of obviously got the Brexit thing. There's a Remainer and a departer. What are they called? I don't know. Brexiteer and a Remainer. You've got Reese again playing a gay character.
Yeah.
Not for the first time this series. And that whole, he'd like Tom Cruise. He'd like a bit of Tom Cruise in him, rather than what Penny would like is a little bit of Tom Cruise in him. And then the whole, I guess, the performative aspect of everything. So, you're kind of introduced to that idea of the pantomime side of the Last Night of the Proms, where they're pretending to cry and all of that stuff. And even that is then revisited. I found it quite interesting, when you see Brian's character go from being that kind of, I guess, the Remainer who is
judges them for their attitude.
Yeah, judging them for their attitude, their anti-foreigner attitude and all that sort of stuff, and then ends up being like that is sort of called into question as like, is that a performative sort of stance that he's taking, because actually he becomes the most intolerant.
I think what was quite interesting, I think I'm able to sort of come at this from a fairly objective standpoint of how the kind of characterizations of people who voted for Brexit versus those who voted to remain, and how Reese's character is portrayed as he's the miserable one sat there darkly moaning about everything, while the Brexiteering family are up having a wonderful time dancing and singing with each other. And it almost seems like a bit of a flip of the general kind of behaviours we see, kind of, I don't know, sort of there's kind of typical attitudes we're kind of shown, if you know what I mean. Usually it's kind of the description of the Brexit voting public as sitting there darkly, snidely remarking about Johnny Foreigner all the time, when in fact with this, Reese was the worst person in the room.
Yeah, with his sort of snide comments and the Rocky Horror shit pit. Pardon my French. Rocky Horror Show for Retired School Teachers was the term he used for this kind of yeah, no, that's a really good point actually. That actually he's a sort of there's a if you look at it as a light-hearted, just enjoying things, kind of festival atmosphere type deal, where you're not completely tethered to everything, like the meaning of everything and all of that stuff.
And he does have the most overtly negative attitudes towards German people.
Well, I mean, that's
and the Christ figure as well.
Exactly. I mean, his display of like putting what's his name? I think I've got confused by names here.
Is he Brian?
He's Brian. Yeah, Ralph is the dad, is the granddad. Sorry, I'm confusing things. And yeah, Mick is Steve. What was I just saying?
We were talking about Brian's attitudes.
Oh yeah, when
his behavior,
when he like puts Dawn in her place with the DNA test and everything, and it's like it's almost who cares more about A being right and B like kind of tribalizing the whole thing, and then the way that he delivers his German accent and like all of that stuff is just like, mate.
Especially when her reaction doesn't suggest that it's the innate Germanness that's the issue. Really, it's the bit about Dad. And the fact that she carries on caring for him after that, and there's no kind of question in her mind of, well, that means absolutely nothing.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, the label actually means absolutely nothing.
Which I think as we come back to watch it, I mean, there's so many things that
this needs at least
it needs so many
rewatches.
But I think that's going to be a real theme. Just which I suppose is the kind of general arcing twist of the whole episode, which would be the performative side of stuff, the kind of underlying values are maybe because you see Mick, like he is much more tolerant of Yusuf than Brian is. Like he's like, oh, he might, he has the Ocado line, doesn't he? Like, but it's kind of that his first port of call is to give him the benefit of the doubt for being an intruder in the house, and whereas Brian is straight to the no. Like, I'm going to, even though he's already been stabbed by a pitchfork, I'm going to just
another go.
Like, yeah. Yeah. Okay, then there's the sailor's hornpipe scene, which is quite an intense scene.
It very much is.
Penny bobbing along with Yusuf. As she kind of shares the story of like what Brian, their marriage, their loveless marriage, that's that again, as you say, heading down that sort of that Nana's party route, not Love's Great Adventure. It's like the opposite of that, but the kind of Middle England Loveless Marriage, RuPaul's you can stay watch. There's the countdown similarities to RuPaul's Drag Race. That's the new thing. And she just completely defiles Yusuf, essentially.
Yeah, I don't think there's another word for it.
as Brian sits in there talking about how, like, British Airways, it's not the British Airways music, it's whatever that is. It's the British Airways theme. It's the Hovis theme. Old Spice.
Let's not get snobby about it. It's the Old Spice advert.
Yeah.
And the fact that Brian is pushing his entire family away from him, you can see him almost pushing Ollie towards his aunt and uncle. Because Brian's not interested in learning to dab.
Yeah, that was so good. Yeah, and like even in that scene, which was that scene? Was that the sailor's hornpipe scene?
There's a bit of dabbing going on at the end of that, while they're all sort of celebrating at the end,
and then they all sit down and like, whew, like that was and you see the love between Mick and Dawn, and there's something really quite nice. That's well presented in a way.
There's your love's great adventure couple there.
Yeah, oh man, they're so good at like creating those almost subversive relationships that you think shouldn't work, that shouldn't be okay.
Yeah, there was a certain amount. There was more of the royal family about the setting of this one. It was a little bit bleaker and a bit more run down than the polish of Nana's party. Because that house is very sort of stark and uncluttered to an extent compared to this, where it just everything looks a bit older and a little bit more sort of run down.
Well, yeah, because there was that the kind of scene with the "There's no place like home" part, where it's like it's a lamenting sort of kind of soundtrack, and when you're kind of looking at the ornaments and the picture on the wall and all of that stuff, and yeah, I thought that was an interesting. I'm looking forward to going and rewatching that, but like almost from Dawn's perspective, something is missing. Maybe that's I know what you mean. A precursor to things, and maybe it is. She knows that she doesn't quite belong. Maybe there's true. that sense. I don't know. And is that when Ralph just comes out with Sea Kyle?
Yeah, she touches his arm. He says Sea Kyle, and then something. Yeah.
That's after Stroke My Pizzle. Yeah.
Stroke My Pizzle.
And then Ollie wants to go, so he's ready to leave. But he's not allowed because Brian has to put up with it, so he's putting his son through it.
Which is a really great attitude to have, I think, as a parent.
Yeah.
If I'm going to suffer this, so are you, son.
Yeah, exactly.
But he is reveling in how much he is hating it. Part of him just loves to snob all over this.
Which I think that's a good observation of, people like me who quite happily
see me during Eurovision.
Well, I was thinking, there's probably a lot of people. Yeah, it's a kind of, it's a commentary on things like that, isn't it? Eurovision and last night the Proms, and other ththings where there's. I guess it's when other people are enjoying something and you're like, I resent your enjoyment. I want to like do a wee all over this.
And let me explain to you the fact that I don't enjoy this because I'm better than you. That's why.
Yes,
I don't
that's
enjoy
it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, it's really derogatory.
So we haven't really spoken yet about the whole kind of Christ allegory thing and what the various pointers meant.
You want to get
So
into
there was obviously the water into wine when Ollie drank his mineral water and ended up throwing up,
puking? Strong wine, Jesus wine, Christ wine.
He's known for that.
Yeah.
Boris making a mess of the dinner.
Yeah.
And then, in fact, they've got a dog called Boris. And I think I saw a giant Churchill portrait in the back of the final shot inside the house as well. And he replaced it, feeding the sick.
So do you reckon that was Boris who destroyed it?
Well, it looked like Yusuf might have made it.
He was starting to get involved with it, wasn't he, early on?
Yeah, and I don't know what that was all about.
No. No, but it obviously put it back.
Something there.
Out the freezer. Was he a chef?
Yeah.
You know?
Maybe he's a chef.
Maybe he's a chef. Yeah.
What else?
Well, obviously there's the hands.
Stigmata.
Yeah.
Speared whilst on the cross.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. That's one you're going to have to sort of go back.
That's going to need to percolate a bit.
Obviously, his clothes, like his look, is, and being the outsider. Yeah.
So she said that she had denied him
three times. Yeah.
What were her denials?
I guess she said she'd seen him on the bus, seen him somewhere else,
and hadn't helped. Hadn't
he was
acknowledged.
Yeah, I don't know what it was, but yeah.
So
she's Peter.
Yes. What was the repeat stabbing all about? Why did Brian have another go with a little, almost like a letter opener?
Well, yeah. I don't know. I can't think what that would be. No. That would have to require some more thought and reflection.
As the whole thing will.
Everything will.
To a very big extent.
I think it's the most like flawed I've been by an episode, certainly in this series. Obviously Christine is one that it would I'm so glad we didn't have to talk about that straight after it.
Good Lord, yeah.
But I think this was so densely packed with things as well, and it was highly charged, because I think for me, like, the reaction would be, okay, the music is a massive high charging point. And so everything that's going on with the mix of emotions that come from all of that music, you know, I've got very mixed feelings about it all. Like, it creates crazy thoughts in my head. And then to lay on top of that, like, all of this stuff, and then this idea of, like, no, actually this figure that they've introduced into this is potentially just meant to be like a second coming of Christ, even though, like, it's
Well, who then manages another coming later on as well, when they bundle him into the back of the car, and then there he is at the end to embrace Penny. And I'd like to. I think that what you just said there, I think almost all of those deserve their own rewatch. Almost every single one of those foci deserve a watch on those bases. I don't know yet whether I enjoyed it or not, which is a weird feeling to have.
Yeah.
Because there was so much, and because Yeah. There are ones that, so Christine, I was floored, but I immediately went, wow, that was incredible, because I think the emotion was very obvious. And the emotion I felt at the end of Christine was overwhelmingly, wow, you've just made me feel such sadness and empathy for that lady. That that writing was incredible. With this, I don't really know what I'm feeling about it right now, other than a
Yeah.
bit all over the shop.
I think what I feel they've managed to achieve, which is remarkable, is a sense of kind of bridging the divide between all of the different things going on right now. So I think as a kind of political thing, I mean, it's probably not all the divides.
No,
but that specific divide.
Watching the Christ figure being laid on a Union Jack like that across the cross of the flag was very much like, there's something here that I don't appreciate right now.
I think it's a really powerful symbolic thing that, again, is going to require some a lot deeper reflection and a lot more watches. But it's kind of, it's not coming from, how everything's so polarized right now. I think it manages to bring some sort of bridge to that, in that there's a kind of a sympathy and an empathy with the different sides of everything. Right. And that Christ figure is almost the bridge that binds them.
Together they stab him up.
Yeah, and it's like, what are we sacrificing at the cost of either like this kind of weird performative patriotism, or this weird performative anti-everythingism? And like, we're willing, like, within the episode itself, there's probably a willingness to sacrifice the relationships that we are enjoying in our lives right now, like the people that we are surrounded by. Like, there's a distance between different people within that group, and I don't know.
Ultimately, you saw someone who was happy to sit there and disparage people for wanting to tear things apart, decides to take a course of action to deliberately try and tear a family apart, and almost deciding that his political viewpoints were more important, and making that point was far more important than the cohesive family, his in-laws, because he wanted to tear that down.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of switching around, and a lot of, I think, holding up a mirror that went on in that episode to certain things that we think sometimes, and certain ways that we perceive things, and just almost suggesting, take a look.
Yeah. And I wonder if they've managed to, and because you don't know, because you obviously only have your own perspective, but like, I wonder if they've managed to hold a mirror up to everybody, or whether it. I don't know, and it's really difficult to be able to say that. But yeah, I'd be interested to hear kind of reactions to it and responses from different quarters, like, because I know, like, and that's one of the great things about Inside Number 9 is it isn't a specifically one, political view or
lilt.
Yeah, exactly. Lilt. Haven't had a lilt in years.
Lilt.
Right. Yeah, I feel we've got a bit stodgy. Not stodgy. That's bad. Like a bit. It's all got quite heavy. That's the word. Heavy and stodgy. Yeah,
they mean the same thing. Yeah, they're pretty much similar to when you're baking, but not necessarily.
Stodgy feels like we've got stuck, but I think it's just we've just got a bit heavy.
Is it a good time to go and have a look at some comments?
Yeah, probably. I mean, yeah, I think we've really actually talked a lot, haven't we?
We have more than I thought we were.
The only thing I was going to say was,
oh, yeah, go on.
Steve doing his accents was very Bernie Clifton's dressing room.
It was. They were terrible.
And I mean, there was a lot of references that were like, this is quite close to the line. I think this is not going to be appreciated. Yeah, and
he didn't do a German.
No,
and that's usually his domain.
True. Yeah.
Not today.
Oh, Lang Syne, dab. It was the boobies, pretty jugs. It made me laugh. Sorry. Yeah. What I'm just running through what else I've got. I love my car. I love the gym. No, you love the dressing room. Willie's hairy bumholes. Yeah, and that's when he went into the thing of like just being so smug about the fact she's 62% German. And it's like, that's not a problem, is it?
No.
Not a problem.
No.
Yeah, let's go into the comments and see what people are. So I think I did. There was a cream and jam.
There was a jam and cream. To speak about that this weekend.
So me and Steve went to Swansea, and we can confirm there is a Swansea.
We did.
We went to see our friend Dan, who had a little mention at the beginning of this show.
He loves bloopers.
He loves bloopers. And we en route had a conversation about jam and cream or cream and jam.
Cream and jam. Jam and cream.
And that's about the extent of the story.
That's where that story ends.
But it was nice. There was a little callback by, Stephen Rees to a conversation they didn't know we'd had.
As well as accents of the British Isles. Which only minutes before.
Yeah, cool. So let's see what people have said.
I think it's interesting about Ottilie said it'd be interesting what backlash there might be. And I think if you're a Brexit voter watching this programme, I think you've come out of it quite well, to be honest. I don't think that either side of that debate has too much to complain about the way that their side of things was portrayed.
Yeah, I think there was almost some of the farcical pantomime aspects of obviously the extreme kind of flags everywhere, that stuff. And then
I think it was flipped up. I think they were flipped round enough to kind of hold a mirror to, like you said, are you holding a mirror to everyone?
I think so, yeah.
Everyone goes, oh.
And I think, as you said earlier, and when, that conversation about Rule Britannia, and there's almost, although, what's his name? Steve's character's like, Britons never, ever, ever will be slaves. Like, there's that line, which is horrific, but like, there's also, that's not, there's a detachment from the meaning of it. So whereas Reese's character would be concentrating on, you are saying something very, very specific and you mean what you're saying. For the others, it's like, no, like, we're just singing the song. Like, we're just enjoying enjoying the moment. As you were saying earlier, just like, there's almost that festival atmosphere. Stop taking it so seriously. And I know this becomes like an issue, but
yes.
Yeah, I think the way they deal with it is quite interesting.
I'd also like to pick apart his Britannia outfit, which it looked like the Norse helmet. And I think there are probably more hodgepodge things there that kind of speak to
The
the
true
melting
history
pot
of
that we
Britain.
are.
Exactly. Yeah.
here.
Yeah. Yeah. There's probably. I bet if you go back and look at some of the things lying around as well, it's like okay, and even her DNA. It's like okay, this is what makes this is. If you want to talk about Great Britain, the things that make it great is that melting pot. Is that that kind of
Confluence of all.
the fact there is no purity. Like it's
Yeah.
yeah. Cool.
So
I like that.
we had some stuff.
Boris was blamed for making a mess. The Messiah replaced the food.
Yeah.
that's poetic, Tim. Beautiful.
I like Tim's given us some. He's filled in the gaps for us around the names of all the pieces of music.
Has he? Yeah, that's useful.
Tim also thought the episode might be a bit more like Empty Orchestra, without much dialogue, and it was going to be a lot more focused on the music. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's where, again, as we rewatch it, like the story or the kind of stuff being weaved by the music, the narrative within the music at the same time as the narrative within the narrative and the speech, I bet there's going to be all sorts of stuff that
That's
you
true,
didn't
because
pick up.
that's very much a focus of Empty Orchestra, isn't it? With Empty Orchestra,
Yeah.
all of those songs were in line with what was going on.
Yeah. And it's like Jerusalem, like the words in Jerusalem, which is such a, kind of an interesting piece of music especially as a patriotic thing. It's kind of like, I'm not sure, like,
Any meaning lost on you there?
yeah, exactly.
Anything at all?
The kind of certain elements of the Industrial Revolution that perhaps weren't that great. I don't know, but the dark satanic mills.
I think the pitchfork was only there by... Yeah, Matt, you're right. The pitchfork was there because of the costume. There's something of the devil about a pitchfork being used as well, isn't there?
Good point. Good point. Oh, guys, I love just the fact so many comments. This is great. This has been so good. Like, yeah, although it's late tonight, but you might.
I thought this was going to be tougher. Actually, I think we've done quite well.
I am tired.
To talk about this.
Yeah. No, it's been great. So let's just fill in the gaps with the music. Tim, has he done them all? Largo from New World Symphony is the Hovis theme. O Fontana from Carmina Burana is the Old Spice advert. That's an interesting piece of music. Flower Duet is the British Airways ad. Adways Air. Tim, on it.
Because I misread the first comment. Steve's cheery racist uncle act was way too familiar, and I was worried about what sort of character I was putting out there.
You.
I was coming across as a cheery racist uncle. I'm sorry.
Oh.
I am drinking water tonight, either. I assure you that's all it is.
That's not what I saw.
There was water.
No. It is now.
It isn't. Yeah.
It was wine.
It was. Take from that what you will. Who would turn wine into water?
A very measly, miserly sort of guy.
So yeah, I think we'll probably get more out of that one in about 6 weeks' time.
I think we will, and I'm looking forward to probably watching this every day the week that we record that next.
And from now until then, I'll fit the other ones in around as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, so this is the end of our live shows. Thank you so much to everybody who's joined us, maybe for 1, for 2, or for 3, or 4, or 5, or 6. I wasn't going to go through all the numbers.
Between 1 and 6. We thank you for joining it for us.
I'm good at numbers now. So. Yeah, and if anybody has anything that they want to share about any of the episodes of the new series, then do email us aquietnightinsideno9@gmail.com or get in touch via Twitter at AQNIN9. And we will, kind of reflect on what we receive as we go into each episode. I think we're going to have a week off next week because we'll be recording Sunday night. So we'll do Wuthering Heist on Sunday. And that just gives me a bit more time to edit it. It'd be nice to sort of put in a few clips and things like we did first time around the other ones.
Like back in the old days.
Back in the old days when I used to spend 8 hours editing each episode. We'll try and learn from what we've learned over the last few weeks. Yeah, what we've been taught. Cool. Yeah, no, I really appreciate everybody who's joined us. It's been a lot of fun, and I hope you've enjoyed it too. I can see Isla has, so that's great.
Annie.
And
Thanks,
Annie. Oh yeah, you'll miss this. Oh. Yeah. Thank you. All right. Well, we'll catch you again soon. Keep in touch. Love you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.